All right, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for joining. I'm so thrilled that you could be here with me today. This is actually, believe it or not, for those of you that have been with us throughout the year, this is our final financial check-in for the year. We'll actually be taking June and July off, and we'll resume and make our new schedule available in August. We'll likely be offering a session in August and then through the entire, what I'll call the academic year. Although I understand most of us don't take the summer off, but we know that summers can be very busy in terms of schedules. So we do postpone the series during those months, and then we will resume again, and we're excited to launch our new schedule. So really thrilled that you're here. For those of you who I haven't met, and of course I can't see your faces on the webinar today, but I do want to introduce myself. My name is Mary Dyer, and I'm a financial education program manager at the Finance Authority of Maine. And I'm just on the heels of Financial Literacy Month in April, so I'm really excited to bring you key strategies for establishing lifelong financial wellness. I know that we have a mix of participants today. A lot of you are professionals working with students and communities to help build financial capability. So following the webinar, I strongly encourage you to reach out to me. Again, I'm happy to share the slide deck, any additional resources that you would like to have access to, or also a follow-up session if you would like to schedule one to go over any one of the topics that we will discuss today. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me in the future. Now, for those of you, I presume most of you are very familiar with the Finance Authority of Maine, but for those of you who aren't, we want you to know that we are a quasi-independent state agency, and our whole focus is to support Maine students and families and consumers and Maine businesses in achieving their business and higher education goals. I serve as part of the College Access and Financial Education team. And so our mission is really to support Maine families as they plan, save, and pay and pursue higher education and training after high school. And a big part of that is to ensure that students and families and consumers have access to financial education. And so I lead that effort at FAME, and we've got some great resources to share with you today. So what we are going to cover today, I'm briefly going to give sort of to ground us and to sort of set the stage a little bit in terms of what we mean when we say financial wellness. I'll then talk a little bit about why it matters and why this is so important, and what I think is the most critical component of financial wellness in terms of its impact. And then I'm going to pause for a couple of slides. And before we get to the key strategies and the rules of thumb and the financial wellness strategy piece, I want to talk about some things that I want you to be thinking about, or some takeaways of activities that you can do to, again, sort of ground this conversation in a way that allows you to think about the emotions and psychology around finances. Yes, there's a lot of knowledge and strategies and tools that we can use, but there's a lot going on with our psyche and our emotions. So I want to talk about that as well. And then I'll leave you with some additional resources. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on today. And that resource piece is really important. And I will be providing resources throughout the presentation. So this is, there's certainly a lot of definitions out there. There's a lot of terminology: financial well-being, financial literacy, financial capability, stability. Certainly there's a lot of terms out there and a lot of definitions, but I really like what I feel is a very succinct, well-defined definition that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has developed. And they really developed this definition based on feedback from consumers. They wanted to know what consumers actually think about when they think about financial well-being. And so none of this probably comes as any surprise to you, but there's one part of it that I really want to zero in on. So what consumers told CFPB is it really is having control over your day-to-day, month-to-month finances, not being in a position where you are living, just paycheck to paycheck, but instead be in the driver's seat and really being in control over those expenses. They also defined it as having the capacity to absorb a financial shock, which that's a really important piece. No matter how great of a position you might be in terms of dealing with day to day, you also have to be able to handle the unexpected. And so that was obviously a key component of financial well-being. And then being able to stay on track in meeting current and future financial goals. That is also important to consumers in terms of how they define well-being. And then this last one, I have it bolded very purposely, and because I think this is the most important part of it. Have the financial freedom to make the choices that allow you to enjoy life. And I think that this is really important because it's all about the choices for you. And so my definition of financial freedom and perhaps financial well-being is likely very different than yours and is very different from the next person. What we value and what we define as financial freedom and what's important to us and those choices that are aligned with that, very different from one individual to the next. And so I think that's a really important part. Now, in terms of why does financial wellness matter? And this first bullet for me, I think that, as we get into that definition, financial capability, thinking about that as having the freedom to choose, to have the freedom to make the choices that allow you to have a happy and successful life. That may not necessarily be about having a ton of money. Or being rich or wealthy. It might not be about having, things, a big house, a fancy car. It really is your individual freedom to choose whatever that life is that you are seeking and those financial goals tied to that. I think so often we get caught up when it comes to financial well-being on the dollars and cents, the money strategies, the accumulation of wealth, the accumulation of money. But really, at the end of the day, the money is just a tool that allows you to make those choices, that gives you that freedom to choose. So I think using that term financial freedom with your students and the individuals that you are working with is really important because it makes it more individual. It's not just about accumulating wealth and having money in your bank account and being debt free. That there's a whole bigger component to it. Now, in terms of what we know related to financial well-being, all of the research and evidence, and this is even more profound right now post-pandemic, what we know is that financial well-being directly impacts our mental and emotional health. The two are very interconnected. Individuals who struggle with mental health have a harder time managing finances and vice versa. They are directly and intricately linked, and that's why financial wellness is so important. I think all of us on this webinar today would agree that financial wellness is as critical as health and wellness, and that being able to manage your finances so that you have that freedom to choose and that ability to lead a happy and successful life, it does impact your health and overall stress and well-being. When our needs are met, we're going to talk about needs on another slide. Overall, our stress is reduced, and on average, we typically lead a longer and more fulfilling life. By every measure and metric that we look at, people who have financial stability are healthier, are happier. They are happier in their jobs. They are happier in their families, more able to contribute to their community and give back. It's all very interconnected. And I have a feeling that if you've joined this webinar at lunchtime on a Friday, I probably don't need to convince you of this. So again, all of those are really important in terms of financial wellness. The one thing that we're going to get into in this webinar today is what can you do to impact that? And I think that one of the things, our focus at FAME, we are so focused on supporting students and families in improving their education and skills, because we recognize that we ourselves and the individuals themselves are their biggest asset. And that the best way to strengthen that asset and bring more value into the workplace or creatively or whatever your interest is, it is to build upon your skills and education and training. And that by improving those skills, education, and training, you are going to ultimately improve your financial well-being. You'll see that when I get into strategies and rules of thumb. I'm not going to talk about education being, the number one strategy, but I wanted to make sure that it was on this first slide. The biggest asset you have to offer is yourself, and that your skills, education, training are going to be the number one way in which you improve your financial well-being. I also want to emphasize there are multiple pathways. We have a number of different presentations through FAME to support you. And there isn't one pathway, there isn't one linear path to that successful, training or education. We want you to know that we're here to help on that front, but there isn't one pathway. Increasing your credentialing within your current career, increasing your degree credentials, pursuing apprenticeships, military, all of those things are going to strengthen your personal asset. And statistically, we know people with higher education level also are healthier, they're happier, they're likely to earn at least $1 million or more over their lifetime. So that's sort of just putting the punctuation point, or, exclamation point on how to impact your financial freedom over time. So before we dive into the key steps and rules of thumb, I want to just pause a moment, as I said that I would, and have you sort of take a step back before we get into sort of the nuts and bolts and the rules and the things that we want everyone to be doing. There are a couple of things that I think are really beneficial activities for individuals and consumers to do as they approach this money topic. And the first one is to really get in touch with your future self. One of the things as human beings that we suffer from, and this is really an evolutionary survival sort of mentality, that we just fundamentally, we're built this way, we're wired this way. We tend to be very present focused. And again, that's just a human nature, evolutionary. We're really commonly focused on the here and the now and what is happening right before us in this moment. We have present bias, and we're very, at times, tunnel vision. Again, not by fault of our own, but just by nature. And so, we tend not to think of our future self. We tend not to plan for our future self, because frankly, it's a pretty unnatural thing for us to be doing. We're really dealing with the here and the now, and to think about the future is sometimes challenging. But what we know, and what we understand that research and science tells us, is that there are significant benefits to thinking about and embracing our future self. And so this activity, I think, is a really wonderful homework assignment. If you're out on a walk, or you have a quiet moment, it's even better if you can use the tool that we have that's available in a publication on our website, and kind of actually do a written narrative. That's really helpful. But if you can only just kind of go through these questions when you have a quiet moment, I think it is extremely beneficial. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about yourself in perhaps 10 years, and you can go longer if you choose to. Perhaps you're going to think about yourself and envision your future self at retirement. And what I want you to do is imagine that if everything goes as planned, that everything happens the way that you expect it to. I want you to imagine what your life will look like in that future time frame that you're thinking about. Now, I don't want you to just have sort of a one sentence answer to that, like in 10, 20 years, I want to be retired and I want to be wealthy. What I want you to do is I want you to fill in a lot of detail. And in our managed publication, and I'm going to talk about this resource at the end of the presentation, but in our publication that you'll find on our website, we actually have, as I said, a tool for you to do this. And it's going to require or ask that you really fill in a lot of the detail. Where do you live? What kind of apartment or home are you in? So this activity is really designed that imagine that you wake up in the morning, and you put both feet on the floor, and you envision exactly what that life looks like. Envision all of the detail, fill in all of the color. Are you living alone? Are you living with a roommate? Are you in a house? Are you in another country? Are you traveling? Are you retired? What does that vision involve for you? What kind of job do you have if it's not a, way in the distant future in retirement? Are you working full-time? Are you part-time? Are you a stay-at-home parent? What are you thinking about? Think about what really is going to matter to you and that future self. And then think about what steps you will need to take in order to get there. And then most importantly, what might get in the way? What might slow you down along the way? What kind of obstacles might you face on that journey toward that future self? I think this is a really good, set aside some time, do this as a homework assignment. One of the things that research tells us is if we imagine all of these things, we think about our future self, we're more likely to get there. And to give an example or my own story, 20 years ago, I was living in the Augusta area and I really wanted to move closer to my family home where my mother grew up. And I started really thinking about that and planning for that. And I had a 5-year plan that in 5 years I was going to move and I was going to make this move and I was going to get a new job and move to a new place. Well, what happened is because I started planning for it and I had this 5-year plan, the 5-year plan became a 1-year plan and I executed it and made it happen. And I know that what did that was the planning and the steps that I would need to take to get there and the obstacles along the way. Once I had sorted that all out, there really wasn't anything stopping me at that point. So that's what science tells us, that by making the plan, you're more likely to achieve it. Now, one of the other tips that I had heard in another presentation from another wonderful expert is it was a tip that you can, using your smartphone, there are a number of age progression apps and you can download this app to your phone and it can, and this is kind of scary, I understand, but you can actually age progress on this app. So I could actually make an image of, retired Mary Dyer. And what science tells us is you save that picture on your phone. So instead of having my family photo on my phone, you have that picture, because then that picture reminds me to take care of that future self that I tend not to think about because I'm super present focused. So I encourage you to check that out. I don't have any one particular app that I would recommend. The other strategy that can be also helpful is if you have a financial goal, whether it's a vacation or to move to another country or retire or save for a vacation, having that image on your phone so that when you unlock your phone every single day, you're reminded. Anything that you can do to put those future goals in your present time is really helpful. So check that out as well. I see Nikki's comment of, yes, living in another, perhaps warmer part of the country or of the world is a wonderful goal as well. So definitely take some time to do that. So the next thing I want you to do, and this is another, again, set aside, we're not going to dive into this today, but another wonderful, homework assignment for you. And that is to really take some time to understand your money mindset and your individual needs and what really motivates you. So money mindset, the next half of this presentation, we're going to talk about financial strategies and key strategies and rules of thumb. And those are all very knowledge-based and action-based. And if we all did everything that we knew we were supposed to do when it came to our finances, we would have it all figured out and we would have plenty of money saved and we wouldn't have any financial challenges. But the reality is we know that there's a lot more to it beyond just knowledge. We know that our money mindset and our emotions and our psychology all tend to get in the way, that our emotions often drive our financial decision making. A lot of the financial decisions that we make are driven by our psychology and our money mindset. And so it's really important that you take some time to begin to sort of unravel what drives you. And a lot of what drives us, and of course our financial psychology and our emotions, come from our very earliest childhood memories. Our relationship with money is often driven by how we perceived money growing up. Perhaps we grew up in a household where our parents fought a lot about money, or maybe there really wasn't a lot of money, or maybe there was money and then there wasn't money. There's all kinds of variations in terms of what is the driver of our financial emotions and our financial decision making. So one tool that I want to recommend, and I'm going to talk about in further on in the presentation, but A way to help you get grounded and really begin to unravel that is to use Enrich's money personality tool. And this Enrich tool allows you to go through an analysis. You're going to answer a series of questions, and the tool then provide you with an overview of your individual money mindset. It will give you a sense of your strengths and weaknesses or challenges that you might have. It will tell you about your emotions as it's related to money. It will give you a sense of your financial outlook and your focus. Will give you that sense of how future focused or present focused you truly are. And then it will also give you some information about what influences you when it comes to financial decision making. And then what I love most about the tool is it takes your strengths and your challenges and gives you strategies based on those two categories, things that you can work on, additional activities. So that is the first thing that I really want to encourage you to use, is to help you understand that money mindset. I think that's really, really important, to get in touch with the emotions, because it's not all about what you know and your knowledge. It's about your psychology and your emotions. The other thing that I think is critical, and we attended a conference, several of us, last week for the Maine Jumpstart Coalition, and we had a wonderful expert, Sarah Newcomb, who presented. She is a behavioral psychologist and an expert on all things related to money mindset and our psychology and how we self-sabotage and really our mind gets in the way. And so I have totally lifted this section of the presentation in terms of what she talked about, but it's only a tiny piece of it. I'm hoping that in the coming year, as part of our financial check-ins, we'll be able to do an entire session where we bring her in and do a deeper dive into this discussion about needs. But I wanted to give you a little teaser and just give you a little bit to think about, because I think it's so important. So I'm sure that many of you have heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that there's a set of needs that we all inherently require. Our basic needs, which of course are exactly what they sound like. Our physiological needs, our food, water, roof over our heads, warmth, rest, safety, security. Those are our basic needs. And then we have our psychological needs, our belonging, our need to belong, relationships, friendships, intimacy, community. And then we have our our self-esteem or our esteem needs, a feeling of accomplishment, pride, prestige. And then the last category is self-fulfillment, sort of achieving your full potential, whether it's creatively, professionally. Really, this is the self-actualization, where you attain the accomplishment of those things that you truly, you value, and you've set those goals and you've accomplished them. And so what's really interesting, and what Sarah mentioned to us last week, is that Maslow himself never said that one set of needs was different or better or more important than the other, that they're all equally important. And we know that. So even if you have a lovely home and all of the food that you want to eat, if you don't have human connection and friendships and relationships, or a sense of belonging or accomplishment or fulfilling your potential, you're really going to be very unhealthy and unhappy. And, if you look at the statistics, you won't live as long. That's just the reality, that need for connection and relationship. So all of these are very important. And so what Sarah really, I think, brought to us all that was so important is, many of us as financial educators, and I have done this time and time again myself, we talk to students and families and consumers about wants versus needs, that you need to understand your wants versus needs. And the reality is, they're all needs. There isn't anything that isn't a need, truly. And what's most important, or more important, is to begin to understand what needs are important to you. Are you someone that feeling of accomplishment and fulfilling your potential is really important? That's critical to you. That's a critical need. Or is it your relationships, your sense of community, the ability to give back, your friendships, which is important to you? Perhaps both are equally important. But the reality is, it's not about wants versus needs. We really kind of need to sort of throw that dialogue out the window and instead begin to understand, What things do you truly need to be happy and healthy and experience financial well-being? And how can your financial decision making help you fulfill those needs in a way, hopefully, that will help you fulfill your financial goals? So there's a whole, like I said, a whole presentation where we're going to dive into that hopefully in the coming year. But it's really important to be thinking about, even when we spend more money than we should on, whether it's going to Starbucks a couple of times a day or meals out, or we purchase the fancy car that we really can't afford, or maybe we're treating all of our friends to a weekend away or a trip. Whether we can afford it or not, in some cases, but that is fulfilling a need. And to begin to understand what need it is fulfilling is really critical. And perhaps there's another way that you can fulfill that need while still maintaining and meeting your future financial goals. So I think that's another homework exercise that I would love for you to be thinking about. When you have those spending leaks or those discretionary purchases where you might be able to tighten things up a bit, think about what need that's meeting and how you might replace that purchase and fulfill that need in another way. Super important. A lot more to talk about there, but a place that I think you want to dive into with your audiences. All right, so the reason that you're all here, the key strategies and financial wellness rules of thumb. And these are, we're going to go through 8 key strategies. And what I want you to know is that I've put these together. You could have 8, you could have 10, you could have 20, but these are really strategies that we think consumers can use regardless of where they are at on their financial wellness journey, regardless of their level of income. These are sort of what I think of as the practical strategies that anyone can use, and the rules of thumb that can benefit any consumer regardless of where they're at financially. So the first one, and I think a critical first step, is to track your spending, to figure out where your money is going. And I will confess that this is one that I struggle with all of the time. Taking the time to review 3 or 4 months of spending by reviewing my bank statements, my online account, and making a list and categorizing that spending. I'm really good at doing it. I'm really bad at following up and redoing it when things change. So that is something, this is an activity that at least once a year, if you can, to go through and really look at your spending and categorize that spending and make a list to see where you're at. In addition to looking at just your bank accounts, tracking every penny that you spend, if you're a cash purchaser, especially tracking every penny that you spend for an entire month to uncover any spending leaks. This is a really important step to take as well. There are some wonderful online tools and apps to help you do this, whether it's Mint or some of the other banking tools. A lot of our financial institutions now are offering online banking that categorizes our spending so that we have a much easier way of doing that. It does still take some extra work for the consumer, whether it's the app or using banking, but it is a really important first step. The other thing when you're looking at your spending is you want to consider the seasonality of expenses. So if you're looking at that 3 to 4 month time frame, you don't want to look at that with blinders on and not consider other times of the year where your spending is much higher. Obviously, holidays or higher utility expenses in the winter. Perhaps summer is a really expensive time for you because of whether it's summer gatherings or vacation spending. You really want to look at seasonal expenses and make sure that you're building that in. And then also, as I said, and I am my own worst enemy on this front, to review and adjust your list on a regular basis. You want to really get a handle on what you're spending on average in a month, and then make that adjustment as things are changing. And then again, as you're thinking about your needs, what really drives you, what's most important to you when you're looking at that spending, especially the spending leaks, is that spending meeting your needs? If you're someone that needs to feel connected and have, you highly value relationships and connection, is your spending in line with that? Think about that as you're moving through. If you're trying to, really focus on your need to, complete, whether it's a professional or creative endeavor, and you want to, focus on that self-actualization, is your spending helping you to get there to meet that need? So you want to take a look at that as well. So the rule of thumb here: know where your money's going, know where it's going, and be very aware of that along the way and make those adjustments. All right. My next least favorite one, but most important, and that is to create a budget. I much prefer when we call it a spending plan. I think that's a much nicer term to use, but this is another very important, at least annual activity. Very important, especially if your income or spending changes or is altered in any way. But another important step. So just sort of the key steps in developing that spending plan or budget: you want to begin by determining your available income and resources, all of your assets and liabilities. You'll make a list of your monthly and annual expenses and categorize them. Again, hopefully you've already done that when you dive into doing a budget. You're going to then compare income, expenses, and then create a plan for each of the spending categories. And of course, you want that plan to include savings. And then, as always, evaluating periodically and adjusting your budget. I want to mention that an Enrich, which is, again, an online digital financial wellness tool that we make available, that's free to all Maine people. And I'm going to talk about Enrich because it's another strategy that I want you to incorporate. But in Enrich, there is a budgeting tool. We also have some resources on the FAME website as well to help you budget. So certainly check that out. The budgeting tool in Enrich is really helpful because it just does the work for you, and you fill in the categories, and it helps you to build that budget fairly easily. So again, rule of thumb here: create a plan for your spending. So once you've gotten a handle on all of that, you should have a really good idea of where your fixed monthly expenses lie. Where's your money going that you are experiencing every single month, those regular fixed monthly expenses. And what I want you to do is review those current expenses or recurring expenses and make sure that you're getting the best deal. We like to recommend that consumers do an annual checkup of your fixed expenses. Again, those bills that you're paying every single month without fail. Your cell phone, your cable, if you still have it. I don't know many people that do, but I want you to analyze your streaming services. Are you paying for streaming channels that you aren't using? I want you to look at your insurance, your car insurance, your renters or homeowner insurance, all of those insurances, and your banking expenses. Are you paying fees on your banking? Can you get some no fee options? Can you get a lower rate on your credit card? I think the one that I should have bolded here is insurance. I think this is the one that I am consistently astounded when I evaluate my insurance costs, that I have many instances where I have been paying more for insurance and I'm perhaps not sufficiently covered, and I'm paying more, and I'm able to actually negotiate a better plan with better coverage at a lower cost. Car insurance, homeowners insurance, those are certainly places where you really can save hundreds of dollars a year, sometimes monthly even, depending on what you're paying now. Now, this does take some time. This is an assignment that you got to set aside some time, because you've got to do the research. You've got to contact the company to make sure you're getting the best deal, and you've got to reevaluate it annually. Unfortunately, your cable company or your internet provider or your cell phone company, generally, they're not going to reach out to you and say, hey, did you know we have a better package for you and you're paying too much? So that's really an activity that you've got to set aside the time to do, and do it regularly, because things are always changing in the marketplace. There's always better deals out there, and you want to make sure you're taking advantage of that. So the rule of thumb here is to get the best deal. Know that they're not going to reach out to you, so you've got to take action to get the best deal and keep more of that money in your pocket instead of with that provider. So another key strategy is to think about ways to increase your available income. And I think of this, and I'm going to say what the rule of thumb is: discover found money. I am a big fan of thinking about ways to discover found money. I'm going on a big vacation this summer, and I've known about it for a really long time, but all of a sudden I have all kinds of unexpected expenses that have come my way: big car repairs, a tax bill that I wasn't expecting. That has come my way. So I am in the found money mindset for sure right now. Thankfully, I had some emergency savings, and I can, mitigate those purchases with that. But now I'm in found money mode. So a few things I want you to think about, not only for you, but whether it's for the individuals and communities that you're working with. Knowing your market value as an employee is very important when negotiating salary. Hopefully your company, wherever you work, is doing this assessment and evaluation for its employees on a regular basis. But there are a couple of tools I want to recommend to you if you want to do some research on your own. Career One Stop is a wonderful resource that is offered through the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You can go on Career One Stop and actually look up any job, and it will give you the median income in the state of Maine. You can do a much deeper dive to get more information on salary.com. But it is important, whether you're advising college students who are going into the workforce for the first time, to be sure that they know what their value is in the marketplace. And it's also important for you to know that, so that as you're negotiating a higher salary, you know kind of where you're at. Another found money strategy is to make sure you don't have unclaimed property out there that is, owed to you, that you haven't taken advantage of. You can visit maineunclaimedproperty.gov and do a search, not only for you as an individual, but family members. You can search a business if you're a small business owner. What unclaimed property is exactly what it sounds like. It might be a tax refund. It might be a last paycheck. It might be a bank account that you closed. It could be a life insurance policy for a relative that you never knew about. I have a coworker that happened to. We were playing around on the unclaimed property database, and lo and behold, she had a life insurance policy that she was able to claim. So again, found money. It's better to not have that money sit in the unclaimed property database with the state of Maine. It's better to have it in your pocket, even if it's only $25. I say go for it. Don't ever pay anybody, by the way, to if you end up on a site where you're being asked to pay for, claiming unclaimed property, you're in the wrong place. This is a free search. And you can search for other states as well. So if you've lived in other states and might have unclaimed property in other states, you can do a search, but don't ever let someone charge you money for that. Selling unwanted items. So this is my found money strategy for the moment. I have a house full of stuff and I'm trying to downsize. I have a relative who's trying to do the same. So, using Facebook Marketplace or eBay or other online sellers, have a yard sale, unload some of that stuff. Go the minimalist route. I'm not saying I've achieved that, but I'm definitely trying to unload some unwanted items. And perhaps you use that money for your savings goals. You put it in a rainy day fund, what have you. Also thinking about ways to use your skills, talents, passion, interests to earn extra cash. More and more people are pursuing a side hustle and using their skills and abilities to make extra money to set aside to help them achieve their savings goals. So I encourage you to think about that. And then, as always, taking advantage of freebies and discounts. My husband's a teacher. If any of you are out there are teachers, there are a number of discounts available to you. Even purchasing of goods and services, you want to really think about that, and travel and all of those things. Make sure you're aware of those discounts. Those AARP discounts can be huge. So be sure that if you're looking at summer travel or anything like that, that you're thinking about ways to get the best deal and keep that money in your pocket. All right. The next one, critically important, establishing a plan for savings. As I said, I had some really big, unexpected, very painful expenses recently on our vehicle. And I was so thankful that I had some rainy day funds set aside. I will tell you, though, it is difficult to achieve the 3 to 6 months of expenses set aside that financial experts recommend. And this statistic here should not surprise you that 45% of Mainers do not have a rainy day fund. And what we found in our research and even in our employee financial wellness program is that this is a challenge for all individuals, regardless of their income level. That regardless of where you're at on the financial wellness, journey or income level, rainy day funding is one of our #1 financial challenges. Many of us are, perhaps contributing to retirement, and we're maximizing those employer matches in retirement, and we're doing really good, perhaps saving for college. But that immediate rainy day money is definitely a barrier. So I want you to, if you're someone like me who finds the 3 to 6 months overwhelming, and I continue to, it seems, really think about a small savings goal. Start a small goal and then build upon it. Start with $500, $1,000, whatever that goal may be, and then build upon that. Another really highly recommended strategy is to set up a savings account that isn't linked to your debit card. Set it up in a completely different financial institution where you can't get access to it, and then automating those contributions. Really, making sure that you're just automatically setting money aside and learning to live without that contribution each month. So those are some tactics as well. Other types of savings that are also critically important. We've got our rainy day, but then we've got our short-term saving for whether it's large purchases, trips, other financial goals. You want to have a separate account for that, ideally. Think of that as your 3 to 6 months as well. And then, of course, our long-term savings, our retirement, our pensions, our 529 college savings, all of that long-term savings is important as well. And I wanted to include this slide because for those of you who are younger, or you have an opportunity for an employer to match your contributions in your 401k or your IRA, you definitely want to do everything possible to maximize those matches and start as early as you can. This slide is incredible to me because this shows the impact of $50 a month in a retirement account starting at age 20 versus at age 30 versus at age 40. And it's simply astounding to me that you can put in the same amount of money 10 years earlier and it essentially doubles your earnings. So that power of compound interest, that time value, if you've got time on your side, starting early, even if it's a very small amount, this is particularly useful for young individuals. It critically important. Start early, take advantage of matches, and increase that contribution to the extent possible. So that rule of thumb, pay yourself first. All right, so the next one, understanding your credit report. So think of your credit report as your financial report card, and think of your credit score as your grade. How you're graded when, financially, when you're seeking credit from a lender or a financial institution. Think of that credit score as your grade. It's important for you to review your free annual credit report annually, and you'll see that I've got free all caps for a reason. You don't have to pay to get access to your credit report. You can actually run that report annually. Technically, you can run it 3 times a year if you choose each of the 3 credit bureaus. What's really helpful in terms of the credit report and becoming familiar with that is you can check for any negative inquiries or entries. It helps you to monitor identity theft and determine whether somebody else has used your credit fraudulently. Really good strategy for young people as they're getting started, to get a handle on that credit report. Increasingly, a lot of financial institutions, credit card companies are providing you with a free score, at least once annually or sometimes more. But I think annual credit report, again, it's free. You can run it, 3 times a year if you choose each of the different reporting bureaus. And it's at the very least a really helpful way to monitor identity theft. And so the rule of thumb here is know your score. So now I want to talk about managing debt, and student loan debt in particular. This is an area where FAME provides a tremendous amount of support and resources to help you if you have student loans. If you work with students and families who have student loans, we are certainly here with a variety of resources on our website. We do also, support you if you have questions about loan repayment. Of course, we're right now still in the repayment pause, and we're all sort of waiting patiently to see when student loan repayment resumes. But the key message that I want you to take away here is to not ignore that student loan obligation. Help is available. There is a great deal of flexibility, in particular on federal loans, to help you adjust that monthly payment if you can't afford the standard payment. There's a whole variety of resources out there to help you. Understanding your loan repayment and the forgiveness options and the repayment options available to you is truly one of the most important elements if you have student loans. And then also taking advantage of the student loan tax credits that are available at the federal level and at the state level. And I've got some resources at the end for you for that. And we have a whole student loan repayment section on the FAME website and a variety of recorded webinars available to you as well. And then beyond student loans, when it comes to other debt, these are some likely very obvious strategies for those of you who are providing financial education in your communities. But to do that research and avoiding the high interest debt, really watching out for that minimum payment trap and making sure that what you are, whether it's a credit card or another type of debt, what you are using credit for that, especially as it relates to credit cards, that you can pay it off in full every single month. And then if you are in a situation where you have several credit cards or debt obligations, really considering the snowball method, where you start by paying off perhaps the debt that has the highest interest rate or the debt that has the lowest balance. That's really what is generally recommended, because you feel a sense of accomplishment when you pay off that debt. And then you take that monthly payment and you snowball it, if you will, up to that next highest amount of debt, and then so on and so forth. The benefit of snowballing is, again, you're transferring that money that you were already paying into that next obligation, and it gives you, again, that reward. And so the rule of thumb here: know before you owe, know what your options are, and certainly reach out for help if you have questions. Now, I've been saying all along, I wanted to talk with you about Enrich. So this is another one of our strategies. We want you to take advantage of Enrich and learn more about how to manage your finances. And we strongly encourage you to recommend Enrich or iGrad if you're working with high school or college students. We strongly encourage you to recommend these online learning platforms to the students and families that you're working with. So Enrich is actually a national financial wellness company. iGrad is actually technically the parent company. Enrich is a tool made available by iGrad. iGrad, again, we pay for iGrad for all high school students and college students in Maine. So you can go to iGrad if that's the tool, and that's at fame.igrad.com. But Enrich is the tool that we recommend after college and after you've finished your education. And essentially, this is a tool that provides free online financial wellness, and again, made possible by FAME, to all Maine people. The wonderful thing, as I mentioned, this is a tool that's paid for by FAME. So when you create an Enrich account or an iGrad account, you're not going to be inundated with third-party marketing. You're not going to be, harassed through email by a bunch of different companies who are wanting to sell you products and services. And so that's one great feature. The other wonderful thing about Enrich and iGrad is the sites are both customized based on your user profile. And so when you create an account, one of the first steps that you will take is you will complete a financial wellness checkup. And that checkup will actually ask you a series of questions about your financial stress, your financial goals, lots of things that help the site sort of gather some insight about you in terms of your finances. I also recommend that you do that money personality tool because it will also remember how you answered those questions as well. And so then what happens is the next time that you log into the site, you'll have a task list based on the challenges and goals and stresses that you mention in the evaluation or in the assessment. On the site, I'm not going to go through a full Enrich or iGrad demo, although we do have a recording of that on our website. But through the site, you can also browse a whole host of videos, infographics, articles, and there are a series of, I think at this point, 21 courses that you can complete on a variety of financial topics. And there are courses for beginners and advanced courses, and the longest course is about 45 minutes. And it's everything from understanding insurance, purchasing a car, saving for college, student loans, budgeting, investing. I mean, really all of the financial topics that you can envision, they're out there. There's even a new course on unclaimed property, a wonderful new course on that as well. And so here, the rule of thumb is to take advantage of free resources. And I'm highlighting Enrich here today, but there are a wonderful set of resources available to you across the state, whether it's through your financial institution, through other nonprofits. Certainly be sure to take advantage. Other state agencies have a variety of financial resources available as well. So a couple of resources I want to mention available to you from FAME and from others that I mentioned in the presentation. Our Build publication. So this is, there's a couple of different things. We actually have an entire financial wellness section of the FAME website, which breaks the information into 3 categories. One for individuals, which is our Build section. Then there's a section for educators and parents who want information to support the students or children in their lives. I've already mentioned Enrich, so you already are familiar with that. And then we have a companion publication called Build that I've mentioned throughout this presentation that you can order free copies of if you want to distribute them to students and families that you're working with, or you want a copy yourself. You can either download the publication as a PDF, or you can order copies. We also have a variety of tools and calculators on the financial wellness section. We have a employer financial wellness roadmap. So if you're an employer and you want to build an employee financial wellness program, we've built a roadmap to help you do that. It includes best practices, research, tools and strategies, just a whole host of games, activities, resources that you'll find on the website in our financial wellness section. I also want to call out liveandworkinmaine.com and the Opportunity Maine, the Maine tax credit that I mentioned. There's great information on their website. And then again, reaching out to your financial institution as well. They often have the opportunity for you to sit down and meet with a professional to go over whether it's debt that you have and perhaps you want to consolidate some of that. Perhaps they have a financial coach that is available to you that can walk you through some steps that you can take. Strongly encourage you to reach out there as well. The other item that I did not put on this slide, but I also want to mention, is the Maine Jumpstart Coalition for Personal Financial Literacy also has a Maine-based financial education clearinghouse on its website. And you can go to me jumpstart.org and find that clearinghouse. And essentially on that clearinghouse, it's going to give you all of the Maine-based organizations and resources that provide financial education and financial wellness resources. And you can do a search on that site if you're looking for something specific, and it will, give you search results based on that. All right, I am 4 minutes left before 1 o'clock. So with that, I'm going to conclude the webinar today. I'm so thrilled that you have joined us. Certainly feel free to reach out to me at any time with questions. I will be sending these slides to you as a follow-up. You'll have a slide, the link to the recording. As I said at the beginning of the webinar, this concludes our financial check-in workshop series. We'll be taking a hiatus this summer, but we will resume in September, and I hope that you will stay tuned for our calendar for the coming year, because we have some great webinars in store for you. Thank you all so much for joining. I hope that you have found this helpful, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and the sunny weekend ahead. Thanks so much, everyone.